Meeting has not started for 7 minutes. I'm not discussing policy or anything. I'm just talking about other things.
Okay, fine.
Nobody should be here until honestly, nobody should be allowed in until 6 o'clock. So if we have people off the executive in, they shouldn't be here yet.
You can't do that, Lex. You can't do that because people will just go away. That's why we got this slide up.
All right.
But we don't have to talk.
Okay.
I'm good at not talking.
Hi, Jim.
Hello.
How are you doing?
All right.
Good. You look great today. Your colors are blending in beautifully with your background. What a beautiful day it was today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have my phone or my watch with me. I was out with my sister down at Piper's. We met at 1 o'clock and I said, I think it's time to go. I have a meeting tonight. I jumped in my car and it was 5:05. I couldn't believe it. Everybody's home. Hi, Lori.
Hi.
Thank you for doing the technical part here today, Lori.
Oh, well, Janet is helping me. She's a good helper.
So are we going to have it so that it's like a webinar where it's just, we don't really see anybody but the person speaking, or do you see a screen of everybody at the top?
As soon as I stop screen sharing, then it will be regular where you see everybody.
Okay,
And
thanks.
I can stop screen sharing now if you like.
No, that's okay. That's fine. You know, my only is there just us on the call rate?
No, there's different people.
Oh, good, great. There's 10 of us so far. Good.
So I'm not sure because this is the first time I've done this, but what exactly is a quorum?
I was just going to ask that question.
We actually have removed quorum for the 2021 AGMs for the RA, so you don't have to worry about it. But it was 9, so you hit it.
I was going to guess 10, Sabine. So I was close.
Yeah.
Lovely to meet you, Sabine. Lovely to meet you, Sabine. I've heard Julia's just joined, Julia Roberts just near here, and I've heard you're working, helping her out with doing good things. And so, yeah, glad to see your face.
Oh, thank you very much. It's nice to see you and meet you all as well. I'm just here to, as the party person, to be here just in case you guys need extra help. So, but I'm sure you guys seem like you've got everything organized, so I'll just be here to listen.
Well, it's great for you to be here, though. Just to answer questions like you just did is really important, Sabine. So
yes.
That's good.
Yes, that's what I've been doing so far with all the RA AGMs. I just get to answer the easy questions. It's kind of really fun.
The average AGM, how many people are attending the meetings?
We've only had 2 so far, and both of them were around like 10 to 15, but those were some of our like smaller ridings in Burnaby and Langley. But I imagine they'll kind of get up to 20 to 30 is what I've seen for like the maximum.
When's the last day for 2020? Well, whatever year this is, the AGM for RAs.
Yeah, so we've requested that RAs finish having their AGMs by the beginning of June, so like the end of May. However, that's not like a hard cap. If new teams start to form, they'll be able to have formation meetings throughout the year. And then for 2022, so next year, we're going to try and keep them contained in the first quarter, sort of the goal. But since the RA agreement was like extended into February, we extended the sort of timeline for them this year.
Anybody having fun with Adventures in Vaccination Land?
I'm on for the 18th.
You know, I registered and I got an email or text today saying, go ahead and book your appointment. So I went there and they said, no. So I called them and they said, what's your name? And I told them. I gave them several possibilities. And they kept, we can't find you. You don't exist. Do you have a personal health number? I said, yes, the one I've been reading to you for the last 4 times you've asked me. Really? How
I got my vaccination,
good for you?
but I'm not safe yet. I still have to wait 2 weeks. So
Yeah, I still have to get the second one. I'd just be happy to get a booking if I could. That'd be kind of fun. Horgan must be taking care of it himself. That would explain why
yeah,
it's working. Horgan the Horrible.
It went fairly smoothly for me. I just, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm booked for the 18th. But it didn't recognize me as Jim. I had to put in James.
I have tried it several ways. I've
I
tried it.
had trouble when I was on the phone.
I didn't do it. Well, I did it. I registered online, but I registered with my legal name, which is not Lex. And so I gave them my legal name, and that didn't work. And then they tried to say, well, my last name is your middle name. I said, no, my last name is my last name. So that didn't work. So I tried it with Lex. That didn't work. Then she says, well, I'll transfer your call. I said, great. And she put me back in the same queue to register again. So don't want to register. I registered. I just want to book. And, yeah.
well, they've only had a year to plan this. Don't be too.
Hey, that's not fair because they had to prepare for an election in the middle of that. They had to plan to screw over the province right in the middle of it all.
Nor for keeping minutes. Nora is here too. And remember, because for whatever reason, her card went through and mine didn't. So show them your face, Nora.
Hi, Nora. Nice to see you, Nora. And I also see Donna on the screen. So Donna, I hope you got all those kisses. Nice to see you.
I intercepted them, Michelle, but I'll pass them on.
Okay, so it's 6 o'clock. Should we just give it 1 extra minute just to see if there's anybody else before we start?
Yeah, well, I know when I do classes, I always open my Zoom classes 15 minutes early, and even at that, I still let people drift in and said, I'm opening it early in case there are any issues. Please be ready to start at 6. Invariably, that lasts for about a week, and then invariably the people who are always late are still always late.
Okay, we're at 6:01.
Give them a couple minutes yet.
Do you think we should wait another couple of minutes?
Well, everybody has, not everybody's. It's 6:01.
Lori, are you busy still logging people in?
Yes, I am. I'm logging people in.
Okay, so we'll wait at one more minute.
And then once you're ready to go, I'm going to do mute all as people are speaking and just unmute the speaker.
Okay, thanks, Janet.
How many people so far?
18.
We have
Oh, wow.
Oh, 18 plus 19 plus 20. 21. 21, because some people are 2 people.
I hate when that happens.
Welcome, Sonia. Welcome, Janina. Welcome, Jeremy.
Yes, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Welcome to all.
And I see Jeff there too. Hi, Jeff.
Okay, let's start off then. We have people that have things to do and places to go this evening, in particular our guest speakers. So I'm Michelle May. I'm the chair for the Nanaimo Riding Association. Welcome all of you that have chosen to attend this meeting this evening. It is a beautiful evening out, and to our guest speakers, and an extra special thank you for attending here today. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the territory of the Nanaimo people, and we thank them so very much for the wisdom and knowledge passed down since time eternal. We have much to learn. Aishka. The next point in order is we'd like to provide just some technical information in terms of the accessibility for this Zoom meeting tonight. Some of you may be familiar with Zoom, others may not. I'm just wondering, Janet, do you just want to quickly explain what you did just a moment ago about the on and off and when people are able to speak?
Yeah, I haven't, hi, everybody. I haven't done mute all yet because I would have cut you off, but looks like everybody, Lori, Lex, maybe if you could mute yourselves. And then we should be good to go. Yes, so if you're familiar with Zoom, you know, and if you're not familiar with Zoom, only one person can speak at a time. And if you have your mic unmuted and you don't intend to be speaking and you move your chair, it cuts off the speaker. So the mute is down in the bottom left-hand corner there, the little microphone, and you just click on it to mute and unmute yourself. I think that's it.
That's great. Thank you, Janet. I just turned off my phone. I didn't want to be interrupted. The next thing we'd like to do is I'd like to call to order the commencement of this AGM. Just confirming, Lori, we do have a quorum because Sabine did say that we only needed 9 and now they're not even so concerned with those numbers so that we can move forward. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda? Lori, is there anybody that has their hand up?
Janet does.
Janet does?
Hand is
Okay.
raised.
Janet does? Okay, so can we have a seconder? Do we have a hand?
Michelle, if you
Yeah.
go on gallery view, you'll be able to see everybody.
Okay, well, you know what? Okay. But I have to flash back and forth and I've got my material that I'm reading from as well. So do we have a seconder for that?
We do have a seconder, Lex is
Okay,
second.
so all in favor, hands up. Any opposed? Carried. Okay, so the next thing we would like to do is introduce our very special guest we have here today. I'd like to welcome Sonia Furstenau, our leader of the Green Party and also MLA for Cowichan Valley. We also have here today Jeremy Valeriot. I hope I pronounced that right, and I apologize if I didn't, Jeremy, who is the chair-elect for the Provincial Council of the BC Green Party. And one final guest speaker we have here today, we have Tyler Brown, councilman for the city of Nanaimo. Here today, we also have with us the Nanaimo Riding Association Executive, which is Lex Dunn, Janet Delgado, Jeff Hawker, Peter Rombach, Lori Thomas, and Michael Hill. Welcome and thank you all for taking the time to be here this evening. Sonia, our very special guest, I wanted to thank you so very much for squeezing in just a few minutes that you are able to this evening. I know you've got a very big packed day down at the legislature. Would you like to come forward on our screen here today and share some words of wisdom and inspiration? We'll have to unmute.
Oh, there we go. Hello, everybody. Very nice to be joining you this evening. I'm down at the legislature, so Lekwungen speaking territory, the lands of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. And it has been, as often it is, a very busy and sometimes frantic feeling day. The pace down here tends to be often sort of, as Nigella Lawson would put it, slow, slow, fast. So we can kind of have a whole bunch of things and then all of a sudden everything happens at once. And that's exactly what happened today. We got the throne speech and then there's a kind of flurry of activity because all of the reporters and journalists want to hear our thoughts on it. And so we do that. So I just thought I'll share with you my thoughts on the throne speech today. I'm not sure if any of you So before I do that, first of all, my error here. Thank you all for being the most important people in this party. I know that often in a political party, the focus is on people like me, but in fact, the party only exists and only thrives because of people like you. And all of you are giving the most important thing, which is your time and your energy, your commitment to this party and to the future that we all hope to be building together. So sorry for that, jumping right into the throne speech, for goodness sake, without really acknowledging and thanking all of you for your service. And I know that it's none of us really feel like we have a lot of extra time in our days and in our lives, and it is a commitment. And I just want to be really acknowledging how grateful I am to all of you for what a thriving, amazing riding association you have, and that's a testament to your commitment and your efforts to keep the work going. So thank you. To the throne speech. Well, it was a perfectly reasonable throne speech for about 1987, maybe, in that it in no way acknowledges the extraordinary and overlapping crises that we are facing. I think climate was mentioned once. In the context of something like, make good jobs. So when we look at where we are in BC, and this is what I talked about a lot today in my response to this, was a year ago, when we were sort of a month or 6 weeks into this terrifying pandemic, and we were all staying home and sacrificing and giving up and making sure that everybody stayed safe, we had this sense of collective action, and that we were all willing to make personal sacrifices for the good of the collective whole. And it was a long time since I think a lot of us have experienced and felt that at the scale that it happened a year ago. And what that resulted in was this amazing flourishing of conversations about what was possible on the other side of COVID-19. That if we could make that kind of collective effort together to keep people healthy, we could also be making an extraordinary collective effort to address climate change, to create a more equitable society, to address the crises that we are becoming numb to in our sort of ongoing day-to-day world. And you all remember it, I'm sure, the green recovery, the just recovery, the exciting sense that look what we're doing together right now. We have the potential for transformation, and we're seeing what we're capable of achieving together when there is clear leadership, clear direction, and a clear sense of purpose. And now here we are a year later, and we have 10 times as many cases, basically. And we have the opposite in terms of leadership. The press conference today with the numbers was, they're becoming increasingly kind of difficult to follow. What are we doing here? What is our goal? The reporters will say, like, at what point, how many cases is high enough to actually take really concrete action? And the response is sort of, we talk about that every day, but we're not going to give you a really clear answer. And what has happened is we have this collective sense of like, okay, now it's all on me as an individual, and I just have to keep myself safe and keep my family safe. And a lot of parents are choosing to keep their kids home from school. And we are now kind of left as little satellites without this sense of what are we trying to achieve together. And then we have the throne speech. And the throne speech is very much a reflection of the same reality coming from this government, which is we don't really have a vision for a world that could be different than the one we're in right now. What we're going to give you in this strong speech is kind of a reiteration of 2018, 2019. We're going to make life more affordable. We're going to get good jobs. We're going to, I don't know, give a passing mention to the environment and no real acknowledgement that climate change is an existential threat, no real acknowledgement of the impact on people's mental health that this year has had, compounded by the impact on our mental health of having to live in a world where we're seeing a collapse of biodiversity, where we're seeing climate-related disasters just become normalized in our news and in our stories. And so I think that the way that I'm looking at this is that these two kind of half-hearted responses to the very pressing reality that we're feeling right now with COVID, and the other very pressing reality, whether we want to feel it or not, with climate, as well as, you know, the fact that more and more people can't afford housing in this province, more and more people are suffering from mental health issues, more and more people, 5 people a day are dying from a toxic drug supply, that there is instead of an urgency and a recognition that what we need to be doing is creating that collective vision for where we can get to if we all decide that we're going to be working together and what kind of leadership it's going to take to achieve that. We have a government kind of shrugging its shoulders and saying, oh, don't worry, you know, we're going to lower your ICBC rates. So, you know, it can be really jarring down here for Adam and me and our little amazing, incredible team. Because we can often feel like we exist in a different world from our colleagues in this building. Like they exist in some place that we don't really know what that world is. And that's been now kind of heightened with COVID. When you saw me pick up the phone and walk out of the room just now at the beginning, you know, I'm getting people now reaching out to us and giving us very different takes on what is happening in our hospitals and in our healthcare system than what is getting reported publicly. And we're getting to the point where these people are unwilling to not speak up. And so they're reaching out to people like me. And again, that contributes to this sense of discombobulation for me and for Adam of like, we are so not in charge right now. Like the Premier's office is right behind me here. And I couldn't be in some ways further from having any capacity to affect his decision-making or the decision-making of this government, although we're not going to give up on that. But I think that in the face of this, in how we respond to feeling like we exist in a different reality often than our 85 colleagues down here, it's really essential that we not lose sight of reality of these serious crises, and that we not succumb to the kind of politics that has been so consistent in this province, and that we will continue as we have been to say, we have solutions, we have ideas, we're just going to give them to you for free. We're just going to keep handing them over to you. And we really hope that you're going to start picking them up because they're really essential and really necessary at a time like this. And at the same time, you know, the work that we do as an organization, as a party, in recognition that, you know, we feel the urgency that we need to be feeling right now. and what we can, you know, it's that kind of what can you control? Well, we can put our energy and our efforts into growing who we are, being able to have a very significant impact, even in the circumstances we are, but ideally, you know, be prepared in the next election to elect enough people that we can really change the direction of what is happening in British Columbia. And to do that, again, it comes back to you. It comes back to every volunteer, every donor, every supporter helping us build that, you know, really that reality project that we're trying to do here, and ensure that in the next election, people can see that you're not limited to what you've always been limited to in BC for so long, that we can actually have a very different way of governing and being and moving forward in this province that doesn't accept that the way we've done things for the last 40 years is the way we should keep doing things in light of the catastrophes that are unfolding in front of us. So on that cheerful note.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for those words. I can certainly appreciate the frustration that you are feeling down at the legislature. It's like they have their heads in the sand. I also resonate with what you're saying. The membership that we have here today and that's outside in our community are now more than ever are the most important piece to our machinery. And with the end goal for us to have it grow so bloody loudly that they have to be absolutely deaf down there in Victoria to not hear the message that the people of British Columbia are screaming at the top of their lungs. I want to personally thank you for all the work that you're doing. So much gratitude, Sonia and Adam and all your team down there. Thank you so much. Before you leave, I just wanted to check if there were any questions from anybody that was here before she leaves and heads back to the trenches.
I'll just add one more thing, Michelle, which
Okay.
is, and I think it's important to say it out loud. We say it a lot internally, but we are working really hard to continually come back to a place in our work and in our interactions to a place of love. And I heard a psychiatrist on CBC yesterday, and she said, anger comes from love. You can't really be angry if you're not passionate about something or feeling love for something. We feel love for this province, for the future, for the planet, for the biosphere, for all of the living things that that we want to protect, and all of the people. And as I used to say in Shawnigan, when we were in the midst of that 4-year fight, it won't be sustained from a place of anger or hatred or resentment, but it will be sustained if you can reset to love. And we're working very hard to do that. And some days it's really hard. And I put it out to the whole team always to just help each other along with that. But I think it is one thing that, you know, in all my different roles in leadership, it is the one thing that has become abundantly clear that it's what sustains me. And I think that when we can have it as our driving force in our work, it sustains all of us.
Absolutely. That brings me back to, thank you, Sonia. That brings me back to Fairy Creek. I mean, there's a lot of angry people out there, but underneath there's a deep passion for something that we want kept here. And just the last thing that about change, we're in the midst of change, and we all know that we've experienced change that's ongoing in our lives. There's always something beautiful and a gift that comes from change, as much as the struggle is. And I intuitively feel this change that we're in, Sonia, is part of the change that will create what all of us here are hoping and praying for. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Thank you, and thank you again for all you do, and have a wonderful AGM, and we'll see you at the provincial conference AGM.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia.
All right, tonight, we have Jeremy Valeriot, who is our chair-elect for the provincial council, which will be at the end of this month. But I thought this would be a great time to invite him to come forward just to introduce himself to our membership. It was suggested to me by Yonina, and I thought it was a brilliant idea. So thank you, Yonina, for the idea. And Jeremy, thank you so much for sharing some of your time this evening with our membership. Jeremy.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you for welcoming me tonight. It's a great opportunity for me to learn from you, as well as we'll be having our first ever AGM for West Vancouver Sea to Sky Riding Association later this week, which is exciting. Previously, I've been grouped in with North Shore Riding Association, and thought it was time to get this riding specific RA set up. So I am speaking to you from the shared unceded territories of the Squamish and Lillooet nations, Whistler, BC. And if you've been watching the news, you won't be surprised to hear me say that I got my first dose of vaccine today, which is a bit of a sigh of relief, but it's colored by what's going on in our ICUs and around the province. So it's light is at the end of the tunnel, but we have a long way to go. So I'm a father of two young daughters, 7-year-old twin daughters. So I'm just, a quick introduction to myself, and I won't get into the chair role quite yet, but I can always take questions. I trained as a geological engineer. After a couple of years of doing geotechnical mining work, I decided it needed to be in the environmental field. Worked in environmental impact assessment, and environmental assessment, and in local government. And as a town councillor, quickly realized that there's lots of really important local work to do, but climate change is really the whole ball game. You can tinker at the edges, but so we made some symbolic, some meaningful and symbolic changes as it relates to climate change. Just did a master's degree at Royal Roads University, which had me focusing on natural assets and quite a bit of systems change and systems thinking work. I'm, running for the Greens in the last election was very felt very natural. I'm really excited about the potential that exists there, both to improve the state of the planet and how we tread more lightly on our planet, but also, as Sonia mentioned, the state of BC's democracy and politics, and doing politics differently with love. So I think that's about all in terms of self-introduction. It's nice. I've met some of you, and I'm looking forward to being more involved. I'm very pleased to be accepted into the chair role, and I hope there's a lot I can contribute to the party through that. And if I don't think we have time for questions, but I'm reachable by email if anybody has any, and I'll hand it back to Michelle. Thank you very much.
If anybody has any questions for Jeremy, perhaps you could, Jeremy, could you just put your email address in the chat box, and then people can contact you via email?
Will do.
Because one thing that I really like to do is make meetings as short and sweet as I can, because attention span these days isn't as long as we would like to. It's very difficult, especially on Zoom. All right. Thank you, Jeremy, so much for your words, and all the best in your role as chair for the Provincial Council. Thank you so much for putting your name and your body, mind, and spirit forward on behalf of the Greens, and helping lead the direction that we're all hoping for. Thank you so much, Jeremy. And thank you again for attending tonight. Next, as our guest speaker, we have here this evening, Tyler Brown, Councillor of the City of Nanaimo. And what a timely topic he is going to be sharing with us tonight. despair and hope, politics for a better future. Tyler, you can unmute, and certainly looking forward to learning what you have to share with us today.
Thanks, Michelle, and thanks everyone. I'm coming to you actually sort of on the border of the traditional territory of Nanaimo, but also Sanas First Nation. So there's a little bit of overlap there, and I'm right on that border where the map shows. So yeah, good words by Sonia, and I think it hopefully will feed into some of the topics I want to touch upon. When Ian sort of reached out and left it open-ended, I tried to figure out what I would actually speak on. And I decided I would just speak to my experience to date of being in political role. And I also had some prior experience working for local government, and just speak to how I feel. And a lot of that is despair, and I'll touch upon that, but also how that despair can be transformed, what I think can be transformed into hope. So I hope it's not too depressing of a topic, but I do think there needs to be some acknowledgement around the sadness of those times. It can't be ignored, and so I will start here. I have a few notes, but I've sort of tried to. I've noticed doing Zoom. It's kind of odd because your camera is positioned one place, but you like to see faces. So sometimes it's not like facial person-to-person interactions. It's a weird thing. So if I'm looking away, it's because I'm looking at your faces, and rather than just the coldness of the camera. So I sort of want to start. Lately, I've got really into science fiction. Maybe it's escapism. I don't know what it is, but over the last year, I've been reading a lot, and last spring, actually, just as the pandemic was unfolding, a friend had recommended a book to me called Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Some of you may have read it. It was written in '93, and it starts in the 2020s. And it's a world set in the US, in California. It's a world that is essentially being ravaged by the consequences of climate change and ecological destruction. There's a drug crisis, pandemic, economic collapse, food shortages, all these sorts of things that made it very eerie to read later. And so the main character is sort of founding her own type of religion or church type thing. And she writes these little passages, and I want to read one that sort of really resonated then and when I read this book, and it still does now. It was called When Stability Disintegrates. When apparent stability disintegrates, as it must, God is change, people tend to give in to fear and depression, to need and greed. When no influence is strong enough to unify people, they divide. They struggle, one against one, group against group, for survival, position, power. They remember old hates and generate new ones. They create chaos and nurture it. They kill and kill and kill until they are exhausted and destroyed, until they are conquered by outside forces, or until one of them becomes a leader, most will follow, or a tyrant, most fear. Maybe those words resonate with you, or they don't. But when I look around the world, I see that, and I think, to hear Sonia talk about trying to bring everything back to love, that is really refreshing to hear, and hear someone in her position speak to. And I want to touch upon that because I think that's how we move from despair to hope. And so I think we live in a despairing time, and that statement is sort of the central thesis of my talk today, but also what's sort of informed my political experience. And I think to say that is not necessarily a pessimistic statement. To acknowledge something doesn't mean you give in to that. And from despair, I think when we can start to speak honestly about that, gain some perspective, that's when we can give rise to hope. And I think the reason we can give rise to hope is because we can be doing better. I think we all know that. We can be doing better for our brothers and sisters. We can be doing better for the environment. And there's a spark in all of us that does strive for that goodness. but it's easy to get lost along the way, I think, personally, as a society, as a nation, and as a globe. And so in sort of my mind is like, how do we find our way as a community? How do we find our way as a society, as a species, from now and into the future? And sometimes I think the work is even just simply as how do we find our way as an individual, and with hope. That is the way that we can find our way, because we can imagine a future that's better than our current experience. And then the work becomes about how do we convert where we are to where we want to get to. And undoubtedly over the last decades, with industrialization, we have made great strides as a species, from everything from combating disease to the reduction in extreme poverty. We have increased our material wealth, and we've been able to do some very amazing things, both in our communities and as a globe. I don't want to say that we've come even close, and I'll touch upon that. But the flip side of that is we've also, I was just looking at the GHG emissions in a NOAA report from today, and you look at the biodiversity loss, you look at even the struggles, what's happening local around Fairy Creek and with our forests and with our nature here in this province. And, we pride ourselves on being environmental stewards. And even here, I think we can all point to things that, are atrocious. And so despite all those, even despite that environmental loss, we still have those extreme poverty in our community, and we still have those struggles. So, it's almost a shame, because we, even at the expense of the environment, we haven't been able to combat some of those huge issues. And so I'm still left with these questions of like, how many people are in poverty? How many feel the malaise of this modernity that we're in? And why do we still prioritize human greed over human need? And why do humans and animals needlessly suffer? Those questions have not been answered, even at the expense of the environment. And so that's the source of my despair. I don't know what else to call it, and it grows stronger. I have 2 sons, 2 and 3 years old, and those questions weigh even more heavily now than before they were born. And so, from that position, I think I've been trying to get some perspective, and doing some reading and all those sort of things. The Holocene that we are sort of currently in is the geological epoch, and it's been 12,000 years of relatively a stable era for life on our planet, and that's allowed us to give rise to agriculture and all these sort of things that have revolutionized our experience on this planet. But that's a fraction of the time that we've been on Earth, but even longer than that, life has been on Earth, or the existence of our planet. And maybe my science fiction kick has sort of gone on with the last couple of years of recent interest in space and getting a telescope. But Earth is very alone in the cosmos. Yes, there's billions of stars, and we live in what astronomers refer to as a Goldilocks zone. Liquid water, we have an atmosphere, we have a metallic core that the way it moves generates a magnetic field that protects us from radiation. We have an orbital spin, all these sort of things, physical and chemical processes that really allow life to exist here and thrive here. And within that, even this 12,000 years of a stable period, quite remarkable that has allowed us. And I think we take it for granted. And from that perspective of sort of where we're at, I think it even drives home the importance of not doing things to end that stable era. And that's what we have done, because that era is going to end no matter what we do at some point. But we need to take advantage of that as a species to prepare ourselves for the things that we can't control, and if we wish to survive with any sort of longevity. And I think many of you probably know Ben Gesselbrock, but this last summer we went down to Piper's Lagoon, set up the telescope, and we were looking at Neowise, which was the comet that was passing by. And just in that night too, we actually could turn the scope 180 degrees and look at both Jupiter and Saturn, just as sort of it looked at Jupiter the way Galileo had. And it was fascinating to think about Mars as our neighbor, and like at the best of times, it takes light 5 minutes to travel from Mars to Earth, and the worst of time, 20 minutes. And the farthest spacecraft we ever send is like 20 hours away, and it's still closer to our sun than it is to the next planet. And that perspective of both geological time and the astronomical distance of space truly shows how alone we are and how alone our earthly paradise is. And that's why it makes it all the more important to protect it, to protect what we have here. So I say all that because I think it gives it a perspective on what we're doing to our home. Extinction is the norm. Survival is an exception. And we are at a crossroads where we can decide if we are going to be good stewards or we're not. And I don't know what the outcome of that answer will be. But I do know a few things about that. Is the way we move from that despair is very much from the way Sonia spoke to us tonight. That's with honesty, right? Honestly acknowledging the problems, not shying away from them, not political spin, saying these are where I was disappointed today because the greatest crisis that is facing us wasn't even acknowledged. And when we do that, I think we don't give into denial. We don't give into fear. We can choose, we can then make the choice to choose love over fear and all those sorts of things. And so to move from despair to hope, we must be honest with what's at stake. We must be honest with what is contributing to the problems and the challenges that we're facing. We must be honest that the government institutions of yesterday are not equipped to address the challenges of today. And that's not a criticism, it's just a reality. Of course they're not. We weren't aware of the consequences, but we are now. And so we can make those changes, but we're not. We must be honest with our actions and the actions of the governments and the people that we elect. They have an impact on the future and the world for our children and our children's children. That's on us. Good stewardship isn't just thinking about yourself, it's thinking about generations upon generations. And I think we have to be really honest that what we're doing locally or provincially or nationally or globally is not enough, and it's not even close. It drives me crazy when people say that it is enough or they're doing great work. It's okay to say, we've put in these policies and we're doing these things, but we know we have to do better and we're going to try to figure that out. That's very different than just saying, hey, things are good, or we got this plan and we're following it. It's okay to acknowledge your shortcomings. And it's that politics of honesty that I'm personally interested in, political parties or candidates and those sort of things, because when people can speak honestly to the challenges, we know that they might not get it right, but we know they're going to do their best to address it. They'll make mistakes, they'll falter, they'll stumble. Hindsight's always 20/20. But if they're approaching it from a position of honesty to begin with, we know their intentions are pure and that they want to see the best outcome. And so from there, it's where my despair turns to hope, because I can see in friends and neighbors, and increasingly so, complete strangers. I can see it in elected officials, and one we're super lucky to have one here tonight that are speaking honestly about these problems. And it's those individuals, I think, when they organize, but it's those individuals that are sparks that become guiding lights, and it gives us abilities to organize around them and coalesce around them and achieve more than just what we can as individuals. And so that brings me to the second thing that I think people need to do is, when we have strong candidates or when we have strong elected leaders that are speaking honestly to things, whether they're in a different party, whether they're in this party or that, we have to support their work, because their work, when they're coming from a place of honesty, their work is on behalf of all of us. And that work isn't just showing up at the polls. I think that's absolutely crucial, because we want to get strong candidates elected. We want to get people that are going to tackle these problems elected. but the work is also the in-betweens, you know, when someone has had a rough day after the throne speech and it's fallen short. When, you know, showing up for them helps. It helps, it fills the cup. And I think if we demand honesty in our political leaders, and if we commit to actions that support them, then we have hope. And I see that happening. And in the, you know, last year, I guess it was 2 years ago now, I had the pleasure of seeing Greta Thunberg speak in Vancouver. And words that they've stuck with me is that once we start to act, hope is everywhere. And, you know, I don't think there's truer words. And so while I feel that despair in my heart, I also feel hope. And I see people acting, whether they're friends, neighbors, strangers, everywhere across the globe, rising up in a way that I've never seen before in my life. And some of you I know have been around longer, and maybe you have, and maybe you haven't. But, you know, I saw a false start maybe 10, 12 years ago, and I've seen that come back and strong. You know, I was so sad. I felt like it flickered and then it died out, but I've seen it come back stronger than ever. And people are demanding honesty, they're demanding action, and they're acting themselves. And so there's hope there. I have hope for my young boys. I have hope for you and I. And I have hope for the longevity of our species on this planet, not just for their existence, but to become stewards and restore this earthly paradise that is our home and is our oasis in space. So I know we can become that, and I have hope in that. And yeah, you know, forgive the sort of self-indulgence here a little bit, but I wanted to just speak what was in my heart, and that is the despair and also the hope. So thank you for having me here tonight. I think you're muted, Michelle.
You have a lot of hands clapping for you tonight, Tyler. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the just being open and just honest with what's on the plate for you right now, which clearly is on the plate for all of us as well. And I just know that hope is going to be the magic ticket that will help us get out of the despair that we're in right now. And the one good thing that's coming from this despair we're all going in, and it's making us all move slowly, more slowly than we ever were before this last year, which is making people sort of notice and pay attention and see and take in what's really going on around us, Tyler, so that we're not sticking our heads in the sand. Just like you were saying, we need to be realistic with what we're seeing in front of us and start not only knowing what's in front of us, but making decisions on how we get ourselves out of this. And hope will give us a good start, jumping start for that. Thank you so much, Tyler.
Thank you, and thank you all for having me.
Okay. Okay, so now the boring part. Well, actually, it could be exciting because we're going to have some new people on our executive after we do some voting here as well. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is approve the minutes from the 2020 Nanaimo Riding Association AGM. And I think that was emailed to you in your package with your Zoom link. So you all have access to that. Some of you may not have been at the AGM, some of you were. Ian Gartshort, did you want to just touch on anything on the minutes before we approve them?
Do you want me to put them on the screen?
You could, yes, sure, if you have them there, yes, please.
They're teeny tiny, but they're there.
Okay, does Ian, can you unmute to say yes or no? You're just going to just say a word or two about this?
He can't unmute. Just a sec. Let me make it so he can. Okay, you can now, Ian.
All right. I didn't take the minutes. I went over them. They passed by my desk at some point or another. It's very simple. It was basically the first time we met and elected the executive that's been in place over the last year. And it's pretty straightforward. So I don't know if there's anybody's got any questions, but there it is.
Ian, you did such a beautiful job reviewing that. Thank you so much. That's pretty much all we needed. That's all we needed. So could we get someone to motion to approve the minutes from last year's AGM? We have Jeff Hawker. Can we get a second? I don't, hang on, I don't see everybody. Gallery.
We're a 1-2 punch.
Oh, okay, I have to go.
I can
Okay, thank you, Janet. That just made it sweet. So Janet DeGaldi will be seconding the motion. So all in favor, hands up. In favor of supporting the minutes? Any opposed?
Motion.
What a easy to get along group you are. Thank you so much. So minutes are approved.
We want to get done sometime before midnight.
Thank you so much. The next thing that we need to do is, let me see. Okay, so there's the chair's annual update. That's me. Okay, so it was an unusual year here in Nanaimo and the rest of the world. For the Nanaimo Riding Association was formed last February. Shortly thereafter, in March, our riding association attended an incredibly successful event, CD Sunday. We had a chance to meet individuals from our community. We answered questions about the Green Party and had a number of individuals signing up to help volunteer, which was a terrific start for our year. Unfortunately, lockdown occurred, which placed us all in hibernation for at least a couple of months. We reconvened with our RA meetings in May and began setting goals and events for the coming months. The community restrictions made this a challenge, to say the least, to connect and engage with our community. We got around this obstacle by creating a guest speaker series, inviting members to attend online Zoom events. We had Councilman Ben Gesselbach, who was our first guest speaker, and he shared the plans and initiatives that the city is taking on with zero waste, with the end goal of 90% in the coming future, which was really hopeful. We also had a local farmer, Chris Brown, speak on sustainable agriculture in July, generating interesting questions and discussion. In early days of September, the NDP government called a snap election. This placed an enormous amount of pressure on a very new and modest size executive. Gratefully, Ian Garchard stepped forward and he will be offering a very brief summary of the election here today. And more recently, over the past several months, our executive have been reviewing and establishing goals for this year, focusing our attention with the query of how to get the green vote and how do we see that vote grow here in Nanaimo. Lex Dunn will offer a brief summary in a few moments also regarding that. But first, may I introduce Peter Rombaugh, our treasurer, to review our annual treasurer report for 2020. Peter, can you unmute and share a few words about our treasurer report? And Janet, if you just want to pop that up on the screen, that would be very much appreciated.
Hi. I guess my summary is that I think we're in quite good financial shape. That when we formed the Riding Association, we had about $800 in the bank account. When the election was called, we had about $1,200 in the bank account. And over the election, we raised a total of $7,728. And in fact, we raised more money than we could efficiently spend, and ended up giving about $1,400 back into our account. Plus, we got, because we exceeded the 10% of the popular vote in this riding, we got 50% of our expenses reimbursed by Elections BC. And we also got our candidate's deposit. So we actually, it's sort of ironic to say, but we actually made money off of this election. And so we now have it there, about $3,800 in the bank account. As I point out, it's not a real bank account. It's a ledger line on the party headquarters bank account. But we have access to that through the executive of the Riding Association. And so I think hopefully we'll build that up. And by the time the next election comes along, we'll be able to sort of be competitive with the other parties when it comes to election spending in this riding. So if anybody has any questions, I'm trying to answer them as best I can.
Okay, thank you, Peter, for that. Can everybody hear me? Because I've totally lost my screen. I don't know why. I just looked, it popped up my agenda and I lost everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I can't see any of you anymore for some reason. This happened at one of my Zoom meetings. Oh, it showed up again. Lori, did you just do something? At any rate, now I can see you all.
It's because Peter had the treasurer's report on share screen. Whenever share screen comes up, the video drops out.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Except for whoever's speaking.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Lex.
Okay.
All right. Next, we have just a brief summary of our election that we just had last fall. Ian Gartshore, our campaign manager, would you like to share a few words?
Michelle.
Yes.
Do we have to accept the treasurer's report?
Oh, yes, we do have to accept it. Thank you so much. So can I get a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
I'll move to accept the treasurer's report.
Okay, that was Vic Bryce. Thank you, Vic. And can I get a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you, Oliver.
Way to go.
We have, is it Oliver Lowton?
Yeah.
Oliver Lowton has second. All in favor, hands up. Any opposed? All right, motion moved forward. Treasurer report passed. You're off the hook on that one then, Peter. Thank you. All right, next on the list we have.
You can head for the Cayman Islands anytime, Peter.
We have a report by Ian Gartshore on our provincial election we just had in the fall. Ian.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So I love what Sonia called the election that was foisted upon us. It was called a pandemic election, and that's exactly what it was. While the NDP candidate was all set, ready to go because they knew what was happening, we had to, when the writ was dropped, we had to choose our candidate, create an election team, get a bank account, which was harder than anyone might anticipate. Peter will know about that. Get a phone number, access the database, the first time we found out who our members were, and we did all of that in 1 week. I just think that was amazing. The team quickly sorted out roles, executed them very well. I'm very proud of the contribution that everyone made. Signs were ordered, delivered, and placed in record time. Volunteers were found for scrutineering all of the polls, a feat in and of itself. We made new associations along the way, including those who are calling on the province to save what is left of the old growth force. And I'm very pleased that our candidate, Leah Versavel, came in second, narrowly edging out the Liberal candidate, drawing more votes than the BC Greens have ever received in this riding. And so for all of you who contributed to this huge effort, I mean, they were amazing people. Whether it was volunteering, I mean, I love what Oliver was doing. He was phone calling and canvassing and waving signs. I mean, that's just one part here. We had my wife, Julia, who volunteered to help out. Janet was a kind of campaign leader. Lex did amazing stuff with
Communications.
PR. I mean, Catherine, the list goes on and on. Everyone just, Vic signs. It was an amazing team and an amazing time. So for all of you, whether you were volunteering or donating or voting, thank you. Over to you, Michelle.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much for stepping forward to be the campaign manager. You brave soul, you. And thank you all, team, and all the volunteers that stepped forward to make the success that we had for Nanaimo. Okay, next on the list, we have call for nominations and the election of the director at large and a treasurer. Our election organizer is Lex Dunn. Lex, do you want to take the floor?
I won't take a long time, a couple of moments. The great thing about living in a democracy, although we lost the election last fall, the good thing is, but every 4 years we get to do a do-over. And this is where the RA really can play a role. It's not always usual that the RA becomes the campaign team. It did last fall, partly out of necessity, partly out of desire. New people coming in, we now will have, because I can't imagine Mr. Horgan being able to come up with another reason to call a snap on unwanted election in the next few years. We will have time this time. But in order to do, anybody who's been in politics for any length of time knows that you don't win an election by popping out of the woodwork every 4 years. It's an ongoing process. And what is done between the elections is at least important, even if it doesn't have the high profile. And that's really what we want the RA to do, is it's to get not only our name, but what we stand for, what we want to do, how we see it, what is our vision, and get it out there so that when people go to the polls, they know more about us than, oh, they're the environmental party. And that's a good thing, but they're the environmental party, which also includes this. So we need to get to the point where people walk into the voting booth on the next election confident that they know about us, who we are, and what we are going to offer as a party. And that is why we invite people to join the RA, to help us, the Writing Association, put forward all of those things, to get out in the community, organize events that align well with who we are. And it's a really important thing to do. And it's not onerous. I mean, yeah, last fall was a little crazy, but generally when we're not in the middle of a panic election, it's actually very methodical on how we proceed. We communicate. Some of us write letters to, well, everybody. I mean, we write letters to press. We write letters to other members of the party, and we keep it going. So when we ask you to join us, it's a very important thing that we're asking you to do here. And I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, well, we're kind of asking you to come help save the planet. No pressure. So we can go ahead now and do a call for nominations. As we said, we're looking for one member at large, and we are looking for someone specifically to handle the role of treasurer. And as you heard from Peter, it's not an overly onerous task for as treasurer. And I think anybody with any kind of numbers background will be able to handle it without any difficulty. So can we have, do we have nominations? Anybody, or is there anybody like to put forward a nomination at this time?
Before that, Lex, can you speak to the terms?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot. You're right. Yeah. So the elections are now held. I'm trying to remember this. I find this confusing. So Sabine or Yonina, I know you're there. So if I get this wrong, please jump in. Feel free, anybody, to correct me. Last year, when we were all elected, it was for a 2-year term. So that's why there are still a few of us carrying over till at least next year. But the terms are now a 1-year or a 2-year term. Is that correct? Or we choose tonight whether we're going to elect for 1 or 2 years?
So all terms going forward will be 1 year.
Thank you, Sabine. That's what I thought. I just wanted to be clear. So if you're elected, if you run tonight and you're elected, it is a 1 year. It is a 1 year commitment, and you can always reoffer if you like it. You want to stay with us. You can certainly reoffer for next year. So 1 year. Drop in the bucket.
So I'll nominate Millie Nickerson for which one do you want to run for, Millie?
I just unmuted. I'm happy to put my name forward for director at large.
Director at large.
Thank you,
So I nominate Millie for director at large.
Wonderful. Now, how we will do this is, since there's only 20 of us, we will, if there's another candidate, obviously we will be voting one way or the other. Even if it's by acclamation, there's still a vote of saying yes, we accept the nomination, or no, we don't. If there's another candidate, then we have an election to decide which of the two candidates wins the election. So there's one candidate for director at large. Are there any other nominations for director at large? And we'll do this one at a time. All right.
So I can't nominate anyone because I don't live in the riding, but I'd like to suggest two names of people I see here, if that'd be all right.
Well, you can't nominate them, but I suppose there's nothing that prevents you from doing that. But I don't know what the rules are about that, whether you can actually do that, Ian, because you're not in the riding. And I don't want to put anybody in a position that somebody challenges an election later because of how nominations went about. So I'm sorry, and I think, I mean, somebody overrule me or tell me I'm right or tell me I'm wrong, whether how we proceed in this situation, because quite frankly, I'm not
I
sure.
think Ian's whispering in my ear.
Yes, I'm whispering in Michelle's ear that I think that either Jürgen Goring or Vic Bryce would be excellent treasurers.
I heard that, what you just said to me, Ian. I don't know if anybody else heard. You did that good, did that well, rather. Does anybody want to nominate Jürgen or Vic?
I would
nominate. We've got horizontal shakes here.
Okay, do any of these people wish to be nominated? Okay, all right. So I would be happy to nominate Vic, but I'm seeing him shaking his head. No, he doesn't wish to be nominated.
Yeah, same for me. I would have to pass. My life is a little bit too crazy for right now, so I'll pass. Thank you.
All right, so Jürgen is passing, and Vic, are you passing as well?
No, I'll go
See,
ahead,
I think Jim wants.
but I think Jim Mason wants in too.
No. See, if
Jim can't. He lives out of the riding.
If you were unwilling, I could volunteer, but I live out of the riding, which is probably not acceptable.
Yeah, no, he can't. He can join the meetings and be with us, but he cannot join the executive. If you do not live in the riding, you cannot become an elected member of the riding association.
So Vic, you're it.
Okay.
Vic, are you saying yes? You're willing to stand?
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. All right, there to go. So Vic is willing to stand. So we have two nominees. We have Vic and we have Millie. So I guess what we will do is I will just say all in favor of candidate A, and we'll see a show of hands.
Yeah, Lex, before you do that, some people may not know some of these people, so they might want to say.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting there, Michelle. So that's how we will do it. Is we will say everybody who wants to vote for Vic, raise a hand. Anybody who wants to vote for Millie, raise a hand. In the meantime, those of you who don't know, Vic and Millie, if you'd each like to take a minute or two to tell everybody a little bit about you and why you would like to join the RA. Let's start with Millie. No offense, Vic.
Thank you very much, Lex. Good evening, everyone. I'm Millie Nickerson. The members of the current executive know me because I've had the pleasure of joining a few of the executive committee meetings by Zoom over the last couple of months. As Lex put it, I'd like to join the Riding Association executive because I would like to save the planet and change the world, which is sort of a long-standing aspiration of mine, but having that focused on being a member of the Riding Association is a relatively recent thing. I have 3 decades of experience working with the Government of Canada in senior executive positions, so I have some strong organizational skills, and I think that I can make a contribution to the work of the Riding Association. I particularly look forward to supporting the work of the Executive Committee in its work of outreach in between elections and working to raise awareness among party members locally, potential party members in the region. So there you are. Thank you for your vote if you choose to do that.
Thank you, Millie. Now, I just want to clarify some things because Vic, were you standing as member at large or for treasurer?
Well, you know, she's got me way beat, so I'll do the treasurer thing.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So, because we now have, so backing up a little bit, we now have one nomination for member at large. Are there any other nominations for member at large? Going once. Going twice. When are you going to be a member of the Green Party? Going to come to the IRAs? I'm going to come out. And that's a no. Going once, going twice. All right. So nominations are closed for member at large. So all in favor of Millie becoming on the RA as a member at large, please raise your hands at this moment. And Lori, you're counting, right? You're tallying, Lori, right? That's what it said in the minutes. Okay, how many do we have, Lori? You're muted, so if you could.
We got 14.
Okay, all
For Millie.
opposed? Any opposed? Nope. So the nomination is carried. Welcome aboard, Millie. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
I accept no responsibility for how you're going to feel about this in 6 months.
Oh, likewise.
Okay. Now then, moving on to Vic as treasurer. Are there any other nominations for treasurer of the riding association?
Okay, just before you go further, I just want you, Lex, did you notice that Rob put a note in here that as of 2021 riding agreement, anybody on the executive doesn't necessarily have to be in the riding? Live in the riding.
You know, there's nothing like getting told all of this right after we have an election. So what I'm not sure what you want to do about this.
Well, we can carry on. We still have somebody on the, is there anybody outside the riding that wanted to be on the executive?
Yeah, I think Jim.
Yeah, Jim wanted to be on
Actually,
the
that's a good
executive.
point. Jim does want to be on it.
So we're going to have to, so this is what I mean. This is.
But Jim would want to run for treasurer. We haven't done treasurer yet.
Hang on.
Wait,
Vic-
hang on,
Vic
let's-
volunteered. I am perfectly willing to allow Vic to be treasurer. That's just fine and dandy.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Doesn't want it.
Okay.
Carry on, Lex.
Well, I'm not sure how to carry on now because we are now finding we stopped nominations of Jim before because we said that you have to live in the riding to be on the executive. Now so we had the election and now we're told after the election that no, you don't have to be. So I don't know whether we have to go back and reopen the previous election and allow people from outside the riding, should they want to run.
Sabine?
I don't know what the protocol is here.
I'll interject there. And Sabine, if you want to add anything. Lex, you're doing fine by the riding agreement that you've seen. You're entirely still within the rules. If there's anybody who wanted to run for a position that didn't indicate earlier that they wanted to, now would be a good time to do it. But I don't think you've had a contested spot yet.
Okay, well, all right. So there's only one spot left, and that's treasurer. So if anybody wants to be on the executive, they're going to have to run for treasurer. Is that correct, Rob? Is that what I'm hearing? The one spot left on the executive.
Yeah, we could. But I think I would also ask if there was anyone who wanted to be on the executive earlier that did not indicate an interest. They could do so now just to check. I think they could still. It's a very solvable problem.
All right.
Lex, if I can make a suggestion that you open the floor to a second director at large.
I'm not sure whether we can we do a second director. You know what we can do is open it up to another director at large, and then perhaps have one of those directors have somebody then become secretary, right? Or do we have to specifically nominate a secretary today, or sorry, a treasurer today?
So there are 4 required positions in the riding agreement: chair, treasurer, secretary, and the data and privacy position. You don't necessarily have to elect them all in this meeting. The new executive can decide amongst themselves who is going to do which role on a 4 to 7 person executive.
Okay.
And again, you don't have to be on the executive to meaningfully participate. So if a person wants to lead projects and be involved, the only thing they don't get by being on the executive is a very serious vote in the executive meetings, which the chairperson could be taken into account either way.
Okay, so you know what? Then what I would like to suggest to everyone is that we don't make the next nomination specifically for treasurer. We make it as a second member at large, and then we can sort out who's going to do what down the road. Would that be acceptable to everyone? Okay, so we now, I believe then, we are at a point now where we have Vic is nominated, and Jim, you would like to be considered as well, yes? As a member at large.
As a member at large, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so somebody needs to nominate Jim. Okay, anybody, there's one. Jürgen is nominating. And a second? No, we don't need a second, sorry. We just need a nomination. All right, so Jürgen has nominated Jim and Vic has been nominated. So everybody in favor of, it doesn't matter, I'm going to do it alphabetically because it's easiest by last name. So all in favor, anybody who wants to vote for Vic, Bryce? Oh, and before we ask for that, could each of you please take a moment to let everybody else know a little bit about you and why you wish to serve on the RA, please. We got 1 minute to do this for provincial council, so you know.
Ooh, that's going to be hard to fit in. Where do I start? I'm a small-time activist and I'm really concerned about the environment. And the Green Party is the best way forward from the alternatives that are available out there. So I'd like to channel my enthusiasm and hopefully make good things happen. That's my deal.
And helping anyway.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. I keep getting questions, okay? So at some point I have to cut off questions.
Yeah.
Or this is going to be the longest election in Green Party history.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have something really important to say here. If both these guys want to be on, I will resign.
Oh, no.
No.
That's not how it works, Janet. I'm sorry.
I don't see why
how it works. So this isn't this, you know, sorry, it's not the draft, right? We're not trading between Montreal Canadiens and Toronto. I mean, really, let's have some decorum here.
We have 2 positions and 2 individuals. I don't see why we need an election.
Yeah.
We have 3 individuals.
No, we don't. We've already elected one.
And we have 1 position left.
No, we have the treasurer, and then we have another. We're going to open up another position.
No, that's not it. What we said was we are going to elect an additional member at large who may become treasurer, but there's only 1 more position, not 2, 1.
Who's talking?
Okay. Right? Rob, is that correct?
I'm sorry, Lex, I missed that last point.
Okay.
The overarching point would be the exec can have up to 7 total people on it. So if your executive would have less than 7 people, you're okay.
Okay.
I definitely agree with the points about the draft. Let's not trade people.
All right. So, okay, so. No, with the nominations we have now would give us, if the ones that we have, if we elect 3 tonight, that puts us at 8. I'm doing the counting, so we can't have 8. So we have room for 1 more member.
In that case, I will stand down and allow Vic to step in.
All right. Okay. Are there any other nominations? Okay, thank you. We will now, Vic, if you have spoken, thank you. So we are now going to vote on whether Vic joins us. And after all of this, boy, you better carry the day there, Vic.
That's a lot of pressure.
All right, everybody in favor of Vic Bryce joining the Nanaimo Riding Association Executive, please raise your hand.
Looks like 0 votes.
Lori, have you got them all?
We have 11 votes, 12 votes.
We have
We've
12.
got 12 votes
Okay, opposed.
for Vic.
Opposed?
Lower your hand, Paul.
Any opposed, Lori?
Nope.
My condolences, Vic. You're on the team.
Okay.
Now, congratulations, Vic. We're thrilled to have you. We really are. Okay.
Thank you, Vic. We're
Thank
going
you.
to
I
keep
have
you
to-
out of trouble now.
I have to get going. I have my cat herding class next.
I'll bring it back.
All right. Well, thank you, Lex, for doing the elections. That's a challenging task to take on. The last thing, which will be very brief, we just would like to share with you all, the Nanaimo Riding Association, the goals and our priorities for 2021, and an announcement and an invitation to our membership to offer suggestions as well via email. And while Lex speaks, I was wondering if Lori could put in the chat box our email address if anybody's interested in adding ideas to our conversation.
In the spirit that Sonia spoke to earlier, of this being a grassroots party, that's why we did not arrive here tonight with the riding executive having a whole list of this is what we're doing, boom, 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 boom. We want to open it up. So we have some ideas that we've discussed, but we want to open this out. Oh, sorry, I got feedback. We want to open this up. I'm getting feedback, Lori. Is there some reason for that? No, didn't there. Okay. Weird. We want to open this up to invite your feedback. What direction do you think that the Riding Association, how can we be more effective in getting the green message out in this riding? And how do you know? And it's also, how are we going to work with our fellow riding associations? Because there's real strength there that we haven't had the opportunity as yet to really capitalize on. So this is some of the other things we'll be looking at. And of course, working with the executive, working with Yonina and her team, and Sonia and Adam and Sabine and the rest of the team in Victoria. But what we're really asking you to do here is please give this some really deep thought about where we need to go strategically as a party in this province and tactically as a riding association. You know, people have been speaking about books, and Jürgen, you mentioned a great book. I'm just reading one now, and some of you may have read it, and if you haven't, you know, we're all talking in the green movement about coming up with a new vocabulary, a new way of speaking about how we share this planet, and how we, I don't want to say the word exploit, because we know how to do that. We've been exploiting the crap out of it. How we care for it and how we take care of it. And there's a book called Braided Sweetgrass by, gosh, what's her but this amazing Indigenous American woman who just writes beautifully. She's also a PhD in biology. And how she brings the Western science with traditional knowledge and how she weaves those two, braids those together, it's just magnificent. I've not read anything better yet that really encapsulates, I think, what the green movement should try to be. and it's just, I highly recommend it. Hang on, I'll try to find her name. Her last name is, she has a middle name which I can't remember, which is Kimmerer.
Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Lex, Catherine
Thank
has
you.
the book on her
That's it.
screen.
Sorry, there it is. Yes, thank you. It's it's a fabulous book. It should be required reading for every member of the Green Party. It's just, yeah, anyhow. It actually brings tears to your eyes when you read it. And it actually is the first thing that has given me hope about the future of the planet in a long time. I was getting very discouraged by a lot of things. This is such a book full of hope and love. It's just phenomenal. So I highly recommend that. So these are we've had some wonderful people. We've had people like, Tyler tonight coming to speak with us. We have had Ben, and we've had Chris Brown, and we've had some wonderful people. We've had, obviously tonight, we've had Sonia. Nina has addressed us on occasions. So we want you to think really deeply about this and think strategically. I mean, I have my own views, but this isn't the time or place to get into that. We are soliciting your thoughts, your ideas, and then as we go forward, we can discuss these. Luckily we have somebody who's a friend of the association, whose knowledge of the science and what the science is saying about the climactic and species challenges ahead of us. And Jim Mason is phenomenal trove of knowledge and understanding about how that's all working. We each bring our strengths, our perspectives to this, and that's how we will make change from the grassroots up. And that will make us different from the parties against which we will be vying for the voters' thoughts. They are top-down parties. The top is not even the leader of their parties. The top is whoever they're answering to on any given day. We, on the other hand, are the ones who are going to give this party its future and its energy, and ultimately, I believe, its success. So I invite you, please, you have our email address, please get involved. The other thing too, everybody is allowed to join and sit and observe any of the executive meetings. Now, you can't necessarily, you can't vote in anything, but you are certainly, according to the rules of the party rules, you may all join any discussion, any meeting, and we encourage that. The executive, 7 of us, we don't have all the answers. So we encourage, beyond the 7, we have had several people over the past year who are not, quote, on the executive, who have contributed enormously. So we ask all of you members to please do contribute. It will be listened to, I promise you. Nobody will, every idea will have a hearing. Every thought. This is how good ideas come about, when people cross-pollinate and fertilize. So with that, I urge you, again, we're running out of time. So we need to get going. We are really, again, I don't want to be a fearmonger, but the science is clear. We're running out of time. So get involved now, today, as soon as you can.
Thank you, Lex. The strength of the direction we're going comes in the synergy of the ideas that come forward, and that comes in numbers. Thank you so much, Lex. I'd also, at this time, like to wrap up our meeting this evening. I would like to thank each and every one of you for attending this meeting. I'd also like to share a special thanks to all those people from headquarters, Janina, Rob, Sabine, for attending this meeting as well today. And thank you so much for supporting us in our AGM, our very first with our new council, or executive rather. And Jeremy, I want to thank you so much for attending our meeting. Tyler and Sonia, who had to leave, please pass on our gratitude as well. So we're wrapping up our meeting. So can we have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Just Michelle, I know because you don't see all the faces. Did you see that Paul joined us? Paul Manley's with us.
Oh, yes. And Paul, very nice to see you here tonight, Paul. Hello. And
sorry I was late. I'm have a busy life.
yes,
I wish I had caught Sonia's talk.
You know that. So just on the last note, just before we get a motion to adjourn, I don't know if I did mention this, but I just a huge shout out to Peter Romba for stepping forward as a brave, courageous soul, being our treasurer through a snap election. You did a phenomenal job stepping forward for this last year, putting our ducks in a row. Thank you so much for all that you have contributed to the membership and our executive, all your thought-provoking ideas and energy, all very much appreciated, Peter. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
We're going to miss you, buddy. So can we get a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
I move we adjourn.
Okay, that's the Bryce motion. Can we get a second, please?
My wife seconded it.
Okay. All right. So have a lovely evening, everyone. Thank you so much.
Do we need to vote? Sorry, do we need to vote on that adjournment?
No.
After, because, after, okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that Robertson guy can be a real.
All in favor?
All right.
Any opposed?
Don't stay till midnight.
You don't need a seconder or a vote on a motion to adjourn. That's the lovely thing about motions to adjourn.
We learn something every day of our life, don't we, Catherine? Thank you so
Yes,
much.
we do.
Thank you. Thank you all. You have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for coming all.
Yep.
Michelle, thank you. You got us out on time. Amazing.
Thank you, Michelle. You've done a great job as chair. Thank you.
Best chair ever.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Janet.